Is Final Fantasy XVI a perfect game? Well, not really, but that's okay. No game is really perfect. And no game needs to be perfect in order to be great. In fact, sometimes a game's flaws are what gives the game its character and charm, like an ugly baby. So maybe we should just be happy with all we got. With that in mind, it can also be fun to imagine what could have been if things were different. Even if it is at the risk of people thinking that we don't really like Final Fantasy XVI as a whole. So, hello everyone, I'm Peter from Birds of Play, and in this video, we're going to be talking about 5 ways we believe Final Fantasy XVI could have been made even better. Unlike many other lists or reviews which mention the same tired things about the game being too easy, that it isn't enough of an RPG, or that Wade and Tyler should really have been called Biggs and Wedge, we will try our best to focus on some other things. The stranger things. The things that haven't been talked about as much, hopefully providing a somewhat fresh perspective. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more Final Fantasy content, and please tell us some of your fixes down in the comments below. But with all that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Fix number 1. Why the hate? Like Necron famously said in Final Fantasy IX, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. So in general, hate is something you try to stay away from. In terms of telling a story, however, hate can be a powerful ally and an important piece of the puzzle. When it comes to hate, Final Fantasy XVI already does a great job of getting us to hate characters like Annabella, but it doesn't really give us enough reason as to why she and the people of Valisthea have such a profound hatred for the bearers. Sure, there is some talk of why the bearers have been relegated to slavery, and the player can always fill in the blanks, but it would have been great to memorably establish up front and center how the hatred of bearers can persist over such a long period and in such a deeply dehumanizing way. I'm sure history would prove me wrong and show how people don't always need a good reason to hate another group of people. But for the purposes of Final Fantasy XVI as a story, the player might benefit from being given a little bit more of an insight into the reason for all the hate, since without it, the treatment of bearers can feel a bit excessive. I'm not saying that the creators of the game need to make a nuanced and compelling case about slavery and prejudice being acceptable, I just need the reasons for it to be understandable. One way this could have been accomplished would have been to draw a direct link between the bearers and the Blight, making people think that the bearers are directly responsible for the world becoming uninhabitable. Or maybe by having monsters drawn to the bearers. The first mission in the swamp, for example, could have led to a bearer having attracted a Morble closer to Rosaria than ever before, showing how they are a perceived liability to society in some way. Or maybe I just need to be more racist to get it, I don't know. Fix number 2. The fright of the Blight. Hear me out. The Blight is a big problem in the world of Final Fantasy XVI, but it doesn't always feel that way. It's a bit similar to how Sin in Final Fantasy X is supposed to be this big, all-engulfing world terror, but people don't always seem all that concerned about it. Maybe even more so with the Blight. Like I mentioned in the last fix, there is a mission early on designed to show the effect of the Blight. But even then we have no real comparison, so it's hard to understand what has been lost and how quickly the Blight is spreading. Also, it isn't long until Clive sets up camp inside Blight territory, sort of leaving us with the impression that it isn't all that serious. Like with the discrimination in the game, we just kind of have to take it at face value. What I mean is that the game tells us the world is on the brink of doom, but it doesn't always feel that way, and the game doesn't seem to fully explore what effect that would have had on the people of Valisthea. This is an issue that could be said to permeate much of the game, so there might not be any simple fix. One way to begin to address it, however, might be to make the hideaway a little less safe. Perhaps it could be invaded from time to time by monsters, giving the player the option to take part in defending the base. Or maybe the blighted area around the hideaway could play a bigger role, allowing the player to experience the horrific nature of the Blight up close and personal. Perhaps even stripping them of their magic to truly drive the point home that the Blight represents a threat to the magic-based society of Valisthea. Why are people in towns not freaking out more over vast swathes of countryside turning black and dying? I'd be freaking out. Am I projecting too much here? Am I the problem? Fix number 3. More accessible lore. When it comes to making lore accessible in a game, Final Fantasy XVI could already be praised for going the extra mile with the addition of active time lore, a feature which allows players to check out details that are relevant to the part of the game they are playing through by simply pushing a button. This is a great feature for remembering parts of the story you might have forgotten, but it also allows players to delve deeper into the lore of the game, as the active time lore entries often contain unique information. As Clive learns more and more about the history of the world and the people in it, he shares his findings back at the hideout with Harpocrates, the laws man, who keeps track of them. But this is where things become a bit less convenient. The reason is that even though active time lore can be activated almost anywhere, players must still pay Harpocrates a visit if they want to read all the lore that they have compiled. Thankfully, the fix is simple. Just allow players to access the lore through the main menu, or the active time lore menu, without having to return to the hideout. Players can still be required to pay Harpocrates a visit if they want to update the tomes and the available lore, but being able to access it from anywhere would make the lore even more accessible, truly living up to the promise of the active time lore feature. If you're going to make lore accessible, make it more accessible. Or maybe this is just the definition of ungratefulness and biting the hand that feeds you. Oh well, moving on. Fix number 4. Map mishap. A lot could be said about Final Fantasy XVI's map. Some might complain that it's not open world, while others prefer the areas are broken down into smaller segments. Furthermore, some might not see a problem with the overworld map being a selection screen, while others wish you could travel directly between areas without having to select a destination. Putting all those issues aside, however, our pet peeve with the map is how unresponsive it is in comparison to the rest of the menu screens. Petty, I know. Compared to the rest of the menu, the map always takes a while to load. If you're flipping between menus, you always get stuck on the map, making for an unnecessarily annoying user experience. Again, I know it's petty. But if the 3D map can't run without keeping in line with the rest of the menu, then maybe a 2D map would have worked just as well. And to be honest, we didn't even realize you could rotate the map until very late in the game. If you're going to give me a map, don't make it sap my will to live. It looks nice though. I always liked the Game of Thrones intro. Fix number 5. The ALDERAAN problem. This last fix might include some minor spoilers, so this is your chance to stop watching if you haven't played the game. In Star Wars: A New Hope, the planet Alderaan was famously obliterated by the original Death Star. A tragedy somewhat undercut by the fact that we never really got to know Alderaan before it was destroyed. In much the same way, there are quite a few places in Final Fantasy XVI we only get to know post-fall, after they have succumbed to destruction. Seeing as Final Fantasy XVI is such a tightly knit experience, this is unavoidable to some degree, as it would be difficult to allow for enough time for players to leisurely get acquainted with the world before the shit hits the fan. There is, however, one place in particular I wish we could have gotten to know a little bit better, and that is the Crystalline Dominion. Once we finally reach the Dominion, it has become a shell of its former self. But the problem is, we have very little context of what the former self was, at least in comparison to places like Rosaria, Dhalmekia or Sunbreak. But how can we go about fixing this? Well, one way would be through side quests, which already allow for plenty of leisure. If some early side quests would lead to the Crystalline Dominion before its fall, you could even hit 2 birds with 1 stone, by introducing us to the Dominion and making some of the early side quests more endearing, as opposed to always saving the best for last. Alternatively, we could have Clive and the other dragon guys from his days as a Sunbreak soldier infiltrate the Dominion for a secret mission, possibly even as a future DLC, giving us more of an insight into his soldier days, as well as the Dominion. I don't know your opinion, but I want more of the Crystalline Dominion. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell us some of your fixes down in the comments. Also, if you want to support the channel even further and help shape what kind of videos we make, please check us out on Patreon, where you can become a patron like all these lovely people. You are the wind in our wings. But until next time, caca!